All right, you've probably heard this one before, right? It's a classic thought experiment. What would actually happen if every single person on Earth gathered in one place and jumped, all at the exact same time? Would we knock the planet off its axis, trigger some kind of mega earthquake? Well, let's get into it, because I promise you, the answer is not what you're expecting.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture this. By some, magical science fiction-y event, all 8 billion of us are instantly transported, standing shoulder to shoulder. The sheer mass of people would cover an area roughly the size of Rhode Island. So let's just say that's where we are. The clock strikes noon, and on the count of 3, everybody jump.
And what happens? Pretty much nothing. It's like a cosmic shrug. All that energy, all that effort, and the planet just barely even notices. But here's the twist. While the jump itself is a total anticlimax, the landing, oh man, the landing, that's when the real story and the real disaster kicks off. To really get why the landing is such a catastrophe, we first got to quickly talk about the physics of the jump. Why the jump itself is, well, kind of pathetic from a planetary perspective. Really, it all just comes down to sheer scale. The Earth outweighs all 8 billion of us combined by a factor of more than 10 trillion to 1. In the grand scheme of things, we are literally just a little speck of dust on a giant, spinning rock. So let's say every single one of us manages a pretty good jump, right? About half a meter. The pushback on the planet is, well, it's basically zero. The Earth would be pushed down by a distance less than the width of a single hydrogen atom. A movement so tiny it's not even really real, it's just theoretical.
So what actually does happen when we all land? Well, you'd hear something for sure. A huge, drawn-out roar from 16 billion feet hitting the ground. It would create a teeny-tiny pressure pulse through the North American crust, just enough to make a few local seismometer needles wiggle a little bit. And of course, a lot of poor folks' gardens in Rhode Island would be absolutely covered in footprints. And that's it. That is the sum total of our physical impact on the planet. Kind of disappointing, right?
But then, after that roar fades, an eerie silence falls. And it's in that silence that the real problem starts. And this part? This has absolutely nothing to do with physics and everything to do with people. So the sound of the jump is gone. And for a few moments, there's just quiet. The collective heavy silence of 8 billion people all standing together in one giant field.
I mean, can you even imagine that? 8 billion people just looking around at each other. You're crammed in with complete strangers from every country on Earth. Nobody knows what to do. The sheer awkwardness of that moment would be immense.
And then, a sound breaks the spell. Just one. A single person coughs. And that simple, human sound is like the starting pistol for the real chaos. Because in that instant, everyone remembers the one thing they all have in their pocket.
Their phone. Billions of phones come out of billions of pockets. And in a flash, every single cell network on the continent just dies. The system is completely, utterly overwhelmed. No signal. No calls, no internet, no maps, nothing. The very first pillar of modern society has just turned to dust.
And with communications gone, the whole thing starts to unravel fast. Because you have to remember, while all 8 billion of us are stuck here in this one spot, the rest of the world is now suddenly, terrifyingly empty. Just think about it for a second. Airplanes are drifting on autopilot, waiting to run out of fuel. Food is burning on stoves in empty kitchens. Playground swings are slowly creaking to a stop. Power grids, factories, every piece of machinery starts grinding to a halt. The entire world we built, it's just been abandoned. In an instant. Meanwhile, back in Rhode Island, there's really only one question on everyone's mind. How do we get home? But the logistics of that, they're not just difficult, they're staggering. I mean, how on earth do you move 8 billion people from this tiny area back to every corner of the globe? The sheer impossibility of it becomes really clear when you start looking at the options. Okay, what about air travel? Well, the local airport, even running at 5 times its normal capacity, would take about 100 years to fly everyone out. Sea travel? No way. There's not enough food and water to stock the ships for those long voyages. And the roads? You'd instantly create the biggest traffic jam in the history of the universe. The simple truth is, there's no way out. And this is where the dominoes really start to fall, right there in the crowd. First, communication goes out. Then, transportation is gridlocked. What's next? Resources. Food and water supplies would be gone in a matter of hours. And with no sanitation or medical care, a horrifying health crisis isn't just possible, it's inevitable.
The problems right there on the ground are just overwhelming. Think about it. You probably can't even speak the same language as the person standing next to you. The local grocery stores, they'd be stripped bare in minutes. Fresh water becomes the most precious resource on Earth, but there's no way to distribute it. And get this, every single first responder, doctor, scientist, and engineer in the world, they're trapped right there in the crowd with everyone else. Totally helpless.
So it turns out the jump was never going to doom the planet. No, it was going to doom us. The final verdict of this whole thought experiment is, well, it's incredibly grim for humanity, but for the Earth, not so much. I mean, with no food, no clean water, no sanitation, and zero organization, the situation becomes catastrophic. In just a matter of weeks, Rhode Island would become a graveyard for billions.
And we have to remember, that includes us, you and me. We're in that crowd too. It's a pretty sobering reminder of just how fragile our entire interconnected world really is.
And that's the ultimate irony, isn't it? Our civilization completely collapses, our species is almost wiped out, and the Earth? Oh, the Earth is totally fine. Its rotation, its orbit, none of it changes one bit. It just keeps on spinning as if we were never even here. Our one big, collective act as a species was, to the planet itself, completely and utterly meaningless. So maybe a note for any future civilizations listening in, let's not try that again, huh? Because what this wild thought experiment really shows us is that our greatest strength, this incredibly complex, interconnected civilization we've built, is also our biggest vulnerability. The thing keeping us all alive isn't the ground beneath our feet. It's the invisible systems of logistics, communication, and just cooperation. The real force holding our world together isn't gravity. It's just the quiet trust that someone, somewhere, is keeping the lights on. Maybe let's not try and test that system all.